Hey, this is Kevin Richberg from Slate Hill Edible Forest, and I just want to tell you our raw summer honey is available to buy right now at slatehilledibleforest.com. It just came out of the hives 10 days ago. The bees took it this summer from a majority of Dutch white clover, sweet clover, a huge alfalfa field that went to bloom, and a really good basswood flow. And it's light and super delicious, incredibly sweet. I know that's crazy to say about honey, but it just tastes like overwhelming sugar in your mouth. Go get some right now.
Stand up. Yes, we are off. That is, of course, our good friend Kevin Richberg. And while this is an ad-free show, if you are selling something, you want to promote something, I'm open to it and have promoted a lot of the amazing things that listeners of this podcast are behind or creating or selling or offering. So let me know. But that's Kevin Richberg, of course. He's one of our favorites and one of my closest friends and the host of Farm Jam, September 5th through 7th. And you can still come. You don't need to make a reservation. Definitely let us know if you're coming. There's a link to all things Farm Jam in today's subscriber email. You do have to be a subscriber. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. It is ad-free, but unless someone like Kevin is selling honey that they actually harvested so recently. It's delicious. Go get it. And let's go get the news, the show, the everything. I don't know. I didn't have a segue, but I do have JL Cauvin joining me on today's show. He is great. He's got a brand new comedy special out. It's called Trump versus Canada, and you can watch it right now at his YouTube page where he has almost 100,000 subscribers. If you're not already subscribing, you should. My conversation with JL today is really great, as always, super smart. Love his thoughts on everything, and you can also watch it live on my YouTube channel. But if you want to jump right to it, you can. It starts at about 30 minutes into today's show. But first, I've got your headlines and a clip show. Even though I'm late here on a Friday morning, I usually post the show a little later because I'm up late hanging out with you at last night's Hangout. There was almost, I think 70 or 60 people there at one point last night, and we had a great conversation over 2 hours. Lots of fun, lots of important things said, shared ideas, and always rejuvenating and inspiring. A good way to kind of round out the week. I do them Mondays and Thursdays, though. I start the week and end the week with Hangout with you, so please join us. And if you want to watch it or listen to it, there's a link to last night's Hangout. I record them, and it's only for paid subscribers, so go check that out. And welcome to new subscribers, by the way. A couple new subscribers just yesterday. I'm very excited to welcome Dean and Linda, who both signed up yesterday. Hello, Dean and Linda, and thank you very, very much for joining our community. Hope you like it and hope you stay for a while. Welcome. All right. So I've got a lot of headlines that I want to mention, and then we'll jump to the clip show. But let's just start with the big story yesterday, of course, was in California, where we saw the governor there, Gavin Newsom, hold a big event. Several masked immigration agents also showed up outside a museum that commemorates the Japanese internment, by the way. So Gavin Newsom on fire, and he is doing a great job, I think, pushing back. I'll have a lot more clips in the clip show coming up. Want to mention in Florida, the governor there, Ron DeSantis, announced plans for a second state-run immigration detention center, an empty prison that could hold up to 2,000 federal detainees. Republicans cannot build or create cages to hold Americans and other humans in fast enough. It's just so unbelievably gross to me. Let's talk about what the other big story, though, I should probably mention first, is what's happening today in Alaska. Anchorage is the place where the president of the United States and the president of Russia, two guys who have great admiration for each other, I think. I mean, I don't know if Putin likes Trump. He certainly is playing him. They will meet so that the former KGB agent can manipulate the current American president. And so all of the reporting and speculation on this, I'm not so interested in, because we all know that how this is going to end. And we also know that Ukraine was not invited. So it's going to be a really important day of news and analysis, and I've got some clips that relate to it coming up for you. But I can tell you they were greeted by a lot of pro-Ukraine protesters that couldn't be missed on the roads to the summit. And the foreign minister of Russia wore a Soviet Union shirt for all to see, something I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have worn for other American presidents if they were meeting, or the Chinese president, or anybody else. But they see Trump as someone that they can play. So that's a huge story, of course, today, and worth mentioning. More aid trucks are starting to enter Gaza, but the reporting is from humanitarian groups that it's not nearly enough. And while the world's attention is on Gaza, Israeli extremists in the West Bank carried out more than 750 attacks on Palestinians in the first half of this year, the highest monthly average since the UN began keeping records. Maybe the president could send the American military in to stop all of those Israeli extremists from committing violent crimes, because the IDF certainly isn't doing a very good job of it. Discouraging economic news. Wholesale prices rose far more than expected in July, providing a potential sign that inflation is still a threat to the U.S. economy, according to a Bureau of Labor Statistics report that came out yesterday. How did that report even get out? How did that report get let out? The Producer Price Index, which measures final demand goods and service prices, jumped 0.9% on the month compared with the Dow Jones estimate for a 0.2% gain. It was the biggest monthly increase since June 2022. Expect prices on everything to go back up. I read, including Arizona iced tea, which for like 30 years, they've kept it at 99%. But because of Trump's tariffs, and specifically the price of the aluminum cans that it comes in, they're going to have to raise those prices, which is such a significant, I think, sign that after 30 years, 99%, they're going to have to raise prices. Fresh inflation data suggests businesses have begun to raise prices they charge each other for goods and services, a sign they're looking to preserve their profit margins in the face of our Mad King's tariffs. So we're going to be footing the bill for that, no doubt. On the streets of D.C., residents in one Washington neighborhood lined up to protest increased police presence after the White House said the number of National Guard troops in the nation's capital would ramp up and federal officers would be on the streets around the clock. Well, after law enforcement set up a vehicle checkpoint along the busy 14th Street Northwest corridor, hecklers shouted, "Go home, fascists! Get off our streets!" Some protesters stood at the intersection before the checkpoint and urged drivers to turn away from the checkpoint. So the people of D.C. are standing up. We'll be talking to Bill about that. Bill B. in D.C., he was at the Monday night hangout, talked a little bit about it. Now he's out of the country with his son on vacation, but I'll definitely talk about it with him next week when he returns, because this, unfortunately, is not going to end anytime soon, I don't think. The Department of Health and Human Services said Thursday it's reviving a long-defunct task force aimed at improving the safety of childhood vaccines, fulfilling a demand of anti-vaccine activists. So the march against science and vaccines continues. We should be paying close attention to that. And Tropical Storm Erin is gradually strengthening with winds of 50 miles an hour as of Thursday morning, but the system remains on track to probably avoid land, so that's good, but it's expected to become a hurricane by today and strengthen into a major Category 3 over the weekend, so keep an eye on that. And those, ladies and gentlemen, are the headlines that I've gathered for you. If there is news that you think I should mention that is undercovered, that is relevant, important, and impacts people, let me know. Email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. All right, let's get to your clip show. And let's start in California with several clips from the governor there and the mayor of Los Angeles. First, from the speech that Newsom gave at the press conference, and several others did as well, and he is not holding back. That is for damn sure.
He's a failed president. Who else sends ice same time having a conversation like this? Someone who's weak. Someone who's broken. Someone whose weakness is masquerading as strength. The most unpopular president in modern history. An economy that's collapsing all around him. You saw the new wholesale prices going up almost a full percentage point today. Inflation is going up. Job creation is going down. He's trying to rewrite history, Smithsonian, censoring historical facts. And in the spirit of what Adam Schiff said, he's trying to put America in reverse on voting rights, civil rights, LGBTQ rights, on women's rights. He wants to bring us back to a pre-1960s world. That's what this is all about. It's about power, and I want to end on this. And we are about to give power back to the people.
All right, just an excerpt. A lot of other California leaders, including Adam Schiff and Senator Padilla and others, I believe, spoke there. And outside, the mayor of Los Angeles arrived because she was pissed at the federal government and that guy Bovino, who is leading the troops out there in California. And so I grabbed a couple of minutes of what she had to say, a scrum of security and media cameras following her outside of the venue. Here she is, Mayor Karen Bass.
No, I can't. This is just incredible. I heard Bovino say that he was here to make Los Angeles safe. This is not making Los Angeles safe. And to disrespect one of our iconic museums, what this museum represents, which is immigration. This museum represents the internment of the Japanese American community in Los Angeles. What happened before in our nation's history, and the idea that they would stage a stunt like that here. The governor is inside having a press conference. There was no reason in the world for them to come here. They came here in all of their cars to do what? To take somebody who was driving a car and then denying that they took anybody at all. This is a complete provocation. This has nothing to do with safety. In fact, this is the exact opposite of keeping our city safe. We do not need them here, and they had no business to come here and provoke this.
Mayor Bass, you're live on NBC4 right now. You do not believe that this just happened to be a coincidence?
There is no way this was a coincidence. This was widely publicized that the governor and many of our other elected officials were having a press conference here to talk about redistricting, and they decided they were going to come and thumb their nose in front of the governor's face. Why would you do that? That is unbelievably disrespectful. It's a provocative act. They're talking about disorder in Los Angeles, and they are the source of the disorder in Los Angeles right now. This is just completely unacceptable. This is a administration, this is a Customs and Border Patrol that has gone amok. This absolutely has to stop. There was no danger here. There was no need to detain anyone here. And there was certainly no need to have a provocative act right here where the governor is having a press conference.
Yeah, real good. She went on, and it's all worth watching. But I got to go back to the governor now, who took questions after he gave the speech that you just heard before. And this clip right here is going viral. The wake up clip, I'll call it. Here he is, Governor Gavin Newsom, begging Americans to wake up. And I hope that we rally to this call. It doesn't seem like we're waking up.
Wake up, America. Wake up. You will not have a country if he rigs this election. You will have a president who will be running for a third term. Mark my word. I wasn't exaggerating when I said that I received in the mail a Trump 2028 hat from one of his biggest supporters. These guys are not screwing around. The rules do not apply to him. The most corrupt president in history. He doesn't believe in free enterprise, crony capitalism. He is wrecking this country, wrecking the economy. He's a lawless president. Wake up, America. Wake up to what's going on.
Yeah. And of course, the governor is also taking a new strategy online. I'm sure you've seen his posts online that are copying, mimicking, trolling Trump's with all caps, talking the way that Trump does. And I think it's very effective. I'm surprised no one's done this earlier. But maybe it was a last strategy of last resort to kind of lower yourself to him. But I think it's really effective and helps show how much of a douchebag Trump is, because he's always praising himself and looking for congratulations. So, like, he could not be more insecure for the president of the United States, of course. And I just think Gavin Newsom has been very effective at that. A reporter asked him about why he's doing that. This is what he responded with.
React to this. What's going on with those posts on X that are clearly trolling the president? What? Can you just talk about that? Is that like a strategy?
I don't know. I hope it's a wake-up call to the president of the United States. I'm sort of following his example. And if you've got issues with what I'm putting out, you sure as hell should have concerns about what he's putting out as president. So to the extent it's gotten some attention, I'm pleased. But I think the deeper question is, how have we allowed the normalization of his tweets through social posts over the course of the last many years to go without similar scrutiny and notice.
All right. Then Governor Gavin Newsom went to the internet and talked to Dan Pfeiffer from Pod Saves America, one of the most popular political shows on YouTube and podcasts.
Outside of the press conference you held today, there were ICE agents. I'm assuming that's not a coincidence. Can you maybe react to that?
It's pretty sick. I mean, what more evidence do you need? I don't think we needed to say a word at our press conference. I mean, he sent the Border Patrol. He sent the regional head of the Border Patrol out here. And by the way, Dan, I want folks to know where we are. I'm at the Democracy Center. I'm at the site where the Japanese were bussed in the 1940s. Quite literally. It's not figurative. And I hope people are listening. ICE or Border Patrol was out there at the exact same site that the Japanese were being picked up and bussed decades ago to intimidate. You think of all the places to be in this country, they chose to be here at this exact time. That's how weak and pathetic the Trump administration is, how desperate they are. What more evidence do people need at what's at stake in this country and why California needs to do this?
All right. There you go. I thought those were all really good. There's a lot more, and he's going to continue. And I think that's exactly what he should do. And other governors should be copying him in their own way. Now let's go to former Republican Stuart Stevens, who was on MSNBC last night talking about what Newsom is doing. I thought this was good.
I think that what Newsom is doing is finally showing somebody can stand up to Trump. And what's the critical thing here is not so much about these 5 seats. It's has the Democratic Party come to a realization of the reality of this situation? They are not in a typical left, right, two American political parties that we've known that have existed that fought over policy. You have one party, which is my old party, which has become an extremist movement that doesn't believe in any rules except power for Donald Trump. And Democrats have to realize that, and they have to fight. And that's what Newsom is doing. And I think the Republicans are nervous about this because there is an overreach here, and Democrats do have a lot of cards to play.
Do you think other Democratic governors should follow his lead?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. They ought to, every Democratic governor that has any chance to do this should stand in solidarity and say that they're going to get this through their states. That's the only way that you can ever get Texas to back down and get Trump, because when he thinks that he's not going to be able to do this and it's going to hurt him, then he'll back away. I mean, I used to have clients that would overreach, and I would remind them, they're like, Custer was looking for Sitting Bull, and sometimes you can go too far, and I think that's exactly what's happening here. And all credit due to Newsom. The guy right now is winning the 28th nomination for presidency.
All right. There you go. Stuart Stevens on MSNBC. I thought that was a great piece of analysis. I love this Van Nathan clip. Van Nathan, former TMZ guy, and he's become more of a political commentator. I think he did stand up as well. I don't know, but he was on CNN at that at the table with Abby Phillip, sitting next to Scott Jennings and other white supremacists, Christian nationalist racists. So I thought that this was a pretty good comment that I wanted to share.
The Confederate battle flag is of a post-Reconstruction time where the Confederate battle flag is adopted, where the Ku Klux Klan arises and comes to power, all for one reason. And these monuments and these people are romanticized, all for one reason, to control and terrorize black people.
That's right.
So moving away from those monuments, from celebrating those people, is actually a strong sign of actual reconciliation, that we don't want black people to live in fear of racial terror and slavery anymore. And to repower those things and those images is saying, it's to me, saying the opposite of that. But here's the difference. I'm not about to cry over the statue. You know why? Because we're not scared no more. We're not afraid. We never really were. We're not afraid of statues. We're not afraid of the cultural terrorists. Our eyes are wide open in terms of what America means for us. And if the president and his administration want to cozy up to the worst parts of American history, we see them. Point blank, period.
Yes, indeed, we see them. Nobody sees them better than Jasmine Crockett, who was at a rally yesterday in Texas over the redistricting, and she was on fire as usual, and particularly specific with how she feels about Donald Trump.
Because the Supreme Court has paved the way for half the stuff that we see that's going on. Listen, Donald Trump is a piece of shit. Okay, we know that. Yes. He is. But in a functioning democracy, he still would not be able to get away with this. But he's been able to get away with this because the House Republicans are complicit. He's been able to get away with this because Senate Republicans are complicit. But most importantly, the courts, especially the Supreme Court, is complicit. And so I think one of the places that we have to start is they are the highest court in the land, and they have no ethics guardrails. Now you go down to the lower courts, and they do. How much sense does that make? When we know that they're taking money, we have the paper trail, and they refuse to put guardrails on themselves, so it's time for us to do it for them.
All right, there you go. Jasmine Crockett, so good. And now I'm going to give you just a couple of clips of analysis from people I think know a little bit about it regarding this summit between Putin and Trump. This is the former Secretary of Defense, a combat veteran from the Vietnam War, and a former United States Senator. It's Chuck Hagel. He was on CNN last night with Anderson Cooper, and this is what his thoughts were.
When you hear President Trump talk about land swapping, I mean, he's said more than once he and Vladimir Putin would discuss land swapping between Russia and Ukraine in order to secure a ceasefire. Though yesterday, obviously, while talking to European leaders, as we reported, he said that Ukrainian territory is not for him to negotiate. Do you think he sticks with that, or is it possible he does start to negotiate that?
Well, I think to start with, the President of the United States does not have the authority in any way to give up land for another country, an independent nation. He can speak for another nation in general terms with our allies, represent them, but he can't be the final arbiter or decision maker and something like that. And I think that's also something that's got to be made very clearly to President Putin. I mean, the fact is, President Putin is a brutal despot. He was molded and shaped by the KGB. He lies. The tremendous damage he's done to Ukraine. The threat he is to Western Europe. So I think all of that's got to be present in the president's mind as he engages, as he so-called negotiates whatever it is. Now, there will be other issues. I know there will be, and I suppose anybody who's been following this knows that. But again, I say you've got to stay disciplined. One other point I'd make in a more general framework and context, Anderson, is you're talking about the future of the post-World War II world order here. That world order has been pretty successful the last 80 years. No nuclear exchange, no world war. And so much hinges on this as to how is the next few years going to look. How is the post-World War order going to play out with the institutions and the laws and so on? So I think that's also, I don't want to complicate things here, but that's also a big part of this.
All right. Senator and former Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel knows a thing or two, so I thought that was worth sharing. And someone with even more credibility, and we haven't been hearing the Ukrainian perspective enough, but CNN's Jim Sciutto got it from the Ukrainian member of Ukrainian parliament. He's also the foreign affairs chairman. His name is Alexander Maresko. I think I pronounced it right. More importantly, here's what he had to say.
You've told me when we've spoken before that Putin only responds to strengths. In your view, is Trump now showing strength to Russia? For instance, what signal does it send that he delayed another sanctions deadline?
Well, the thing is that, at least from my perspective, even though President Trump prides himself on being a good, excellent negotiator or genius in terms of deal making, but negotiations haven't started yet, but he has already made at least 3 serious mistakes. One of them is that he has rewarded Putin, who is a war criminal. There is an arrest warrant from the ICC, and he has rewarded him with this summit. It's political gift to Putin, absolutely undeserved and absolutely unnecessary. President Trump, unfortunately, has broken political isolation of Putin. Second mistake is when President Trump is trying to solve the matter over the head of Ukraine, to decide the fate of our country and our people with Russian war criminal behind our back. It reminds Munich 1938. And finally, the final big mistake, one of the biggest mistakes already made by President Trump, is about, I would like to remind the words of President Kennedy in the middle of the Berlin crisis. He said, we cannot negotiate with people who say what is ours, what is mine, and what is yours is negotiable.
Yes. Good stuff. And a good clip show, if I do say so myself. Yeah. All right. Finally, though, before I get to my conversation with J.L. Cauvin, I got a little of J.L. Cauvin from his brand new special, Trump versus Canada, which is now up on YouTube. You can watch it for free. So go click on it and watch it. Even if you don't watch it, just press play so it tracks the numbers and it helps JL. You can always support him on Patreon. He showed up at our Hangout last night. It was a lot of fun. Always a hit. And we're very happy that he did. And I hope that you will go watch that. I hope you'll go subscribe. You can pay him to do a cameo. Follow him on social media where he's doing all kinds of great commentary. Had an awesome conversation with JL, who's now working for an amazing nonprofit in New York City, helping people stay in their homes and making housing affordable. And I love talking to him. I admire him a great deal. I think he's super smart and obviously very, very funny. But here's a clip, him as Trump performing in Toronto at a comedy club in Toronto. And this is part of the special, the first couple of minutes here. And I think you're going to love it.
Shut it off. Shut that crap off. And I say that with respect to our great country. Well, what will be our great country eventually. Thank you for having me, Canada, or Toronto. Is this still part of Canada? Have we gotten it yet? I want to start on a note of peace. Okay? We're going to be nice. We're going to be nice. This isn't my first time to Canada. I've seen all of Canada's beautiful city. And it's called Vancouver. So thank you. Thank you, Vancouver. Oh, they're trying to cancel me. But it's a great honor for you to have me here tonight. We're going to do talk. We're going to maybe even debate. It's called Q&A, not QAnon. But thank you. I see some of my guys out there. QAnon. We love QAnon. We love the QAnon, but this is Q&A. QAnon will be next week. But oh, look at that. I didn't even know my own strength. It's a strong guy. That's a Sleepy Joe couldn't do that. Sleepy Joe. You never saw him lift a microphone. No, you didn't. So I'm here today on a diplomatic mission of peace. It's called peace. That's what we're going to do. We're going to have peace because we would totally kick the shit out of you in a war. So I'm actually doing you a favor by doing peace. And I noticed nobody said thank you. Strike one. Strike one for Toronto. Not doing too good right now, Toronto. Not too good. But I want you to be the 51st state. And that's a great honor. It's more, you're so concerned about, but we're Canada. Think of it like a marriage, okay? When you marry the United States, you take the United States name. It's very simple. Not one of these woke radical feminist countries that's like, no, I want to hyphenate it. Can I be known as Canada, United States? No, you can't. It's in the prenup. But if you don't move fast, you might be 52. You don't want to be behind Greenland. Because they will rub that crap in your face the rest of your lives. Hello, 52. We could have been 50. Well, it could have been 51. 51's so much better than 52. And if you don't move quickly, you'll probably be 69.
All right, there you go. And now it's time for my conversation with JL Cauvin. You can watch it on YouTube, youtube.com/standupwithpete. Go subscribe to that. Here we go.
I'm giving you my thought leader pose. This is going to be my headshot when I become an official thought leader.
When do you get your thought leader license?
I'm doing it online, so I'm about halfway through the coursework, and I think they just send you a certificate. It's like being a minister, except now I get to officiate events at the Aspen Idea. What's that called? The Aspen
Ideas Fest. I did it 7 years in a row. It's probably the most important kind of thing I've ever been involved with. I created the partnership between SiriusXM and Aspen, and that was a wonderful thing. But you're JL Cauvin joins me now. We're live and very excited to see you. And tonight at 9 p.m., people can watch your new special on YouTube. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But make sure if you're not following and subscribed to JL on YouTube right now, there's so much good stuff. If you're not a subscriber to his YouTube channel, you're really missing out is what I'm trying to say. We'll talk about it. But just real quick, who are the actual thought leaders that you admire that are either dead or alive? If you could have dinner with a living thought leader and a dead thought leader, whatever that even means.
I'll give you two right now. I'm gonna blow your mind. Bo Burnham, living. Jesus Christ, dead. So some think. He lives in all of us, in my opinion, but the conventional definition of dead.
Do you not know? You've never met Bo Burnham?
No.
Why do you admire him so much?
Because I see comedy, art in general, and more specifically to what I like, comedy, really in a, much like many things in society, in a sort of downward spiral. And I think he is somebody who is constant, like him, Sacha Baron Cohen, and Nathan Fielder are three examples of people, not traditional stand-up comics, obviously, but doing really creative things still in the comedy space in an era where things are getting more stale, more algorithm pandering, etc. I think he is somebody who, with wisdom and insight and intelligence, that he's able to early on getting his success through YouTube so early when that was still a newish thing. He saw it for what it was. He became a critic of the internet and social media faster than most people because he was smart enough, but also such an early adapter and success at it that he got to sort of the pitfalls of it so quickly. His comedy, he is a legitimate comedy genius.
Yeah, I agree.
And I respect that so much. And it's even more refreshing to see somebody, a decade plus younger than me, where for the most part, I give up on a lot of things involving young people, but to see somebody with that insight and talent I'm a real fan, and it feels good as a cynical, jaded comic to be able to be like a real.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's why I asked, because you're such a cynical, jaded fuck that when you truly admire someone, I want to know who that is. I interviewed Bo Burnham a couple times back in
No questions about Christ, I see. Interesting.
It's such a hack answer. Surprising.
It wouldn't be your answer. You'd probably be like Karl Marx and Karl Marx's friend.
My dead, I would definitely pick Frederick Douglass.
Oh, and well, you got a biracial guy right here, a biracial legend. As I've joked on stage to not much laughter, I said, my parents' consummation a little more consensual than Frederick Douglass's, but otherwise we're basically the same guy.
You're a social reformer, abolitionist, orator, writer, and statesman. I just looked.
The most photographed man on my Instagram. They often said he was the most photographed man in America at the time. So I was doing once again a JL joke that works if you are one of the 8 people who get everything I'm talking about.
All right, I'll bite. Why would you want to hang out with Jesus Christ?
Oh, let's just get his thoughts on today. I don't have to. I will be buying John Fugelsang's book, but imagine if you didn't, and you could just go right to the source material and say, "All right, let's go through the issues. How do you feel? I'm going to talk to you about this guy Trump. You give me your holy feedback. What do you think?" And then I become the thought leader when I just go out and go, "I've got the exclusive rights to my conversation with Jesus Christ. Here it is, everybody. It's a done deal."
Can't believe you just commercialized your meeting with Jesus.
Oh, I'd like Jonas Salk, I would put it out for free. How about that? Take that, Pete.
We don't have a lot of Jonas Salks.
I'd probably like hook up with a lot of women off of it. Like that would be the currency I get, where it's like, you're the guy who like spoke with Jesus, right? Yeah, I am. I am that guy. And you gave the book away for free? Yeah. Yeah. That's the kind of guy I am.
Now I just want to ask you about other living people. I just want to ask for the rest of our conversation, living and dead people that you'd love to talk to and what the conversation would be like. Maybe you should do an episode of your podcast and use that as an actual vehicle for the content, because you're such a thoughtful and funny person. It would be really interesting to hear you talk about what your conversation with any of these people would be like.
And then I can add impressions of people we don't know what they sound like. So I would just create new impressions of people.
Tonight, 9 p.m. on your YouTube channel, you are releasing a new special. It's you performing as Donald Trump. Nobody does it better. Not even close to does it better. Even those who are really good at the impression don't have the best material, and even those who have great material often have other people writing for them and helping them. Not the case with you. You also have a rapid reaction force, one-man force, when something happens.
I didn't post it, but the reason I was late is I did a 3-minute video on Trump announcing that he's going to host the Kennedy Center honors, and I love the nominees. I love the nominees he put forward, or the recipients.
I actually just saw that, and I can't wait to see your video. But just to be clear, nobody does nobody even remotely comes close to your impression of Trump. And you performed in Canada, and it was a much different reaction for a lot of reasons than you get in America. Not that you don't do really well here, and people can listen to the podcast
when people buy tickets to see me, I get a great reaction.
Sure.
But Canada, I packed the place, and it was electric. I have this thing that goes through my mind whenever I do a gig now, especially on one where I'm traveling 12 hours by train to Toronto. And I say, I have multiple conversations via text with my girlfriend where I'm like, why am I doing this? And not just like, why am I going to Canada? Why am I doing any of this? This is pointless. What am I doing? And that show was definitely one of the 5 best shows of my life. And I had gotten a videographer, and I was really just looking for somebody to film me. Like, let's get some, feed the algorithm. If there's some really good crowd work clips or some good moments, we can get those up on social media. But by the price he was charging me, I realized, he wants to do like a full special. He came with the 3 cameras, 2 assistants. And the show was absolutely electric. Like, I remember looking at the camera guy, the director, basically, after the show, and he was like blown away and so happy to have, like, he did a beautiful, when I saw his work, it's absolutely beautiful. It's just really well done. But he was like giddy because he was just like, yeah, it's a job. I'm going to record this guy. Hopefully it's funny. And it was just one of those shows where it was like 90 minutes on fire. And the crowd was packed. I did like a 20-minute ad-lib speech telling Canadians the reasons why they should want what I'm willing to give them if they become the 51st state. And then I took like an hour of questions from people. So it's really like 98% ad-libbed, the show. And people, like, their jaws were dropping after the show because it was just like somebody doing this incredible ad-libbed comedy in the character of the man they hate the most perfectly. And I'm just, if I do nothing else with Trump big ever again, like, this is like such a great landmark or milestone for all the work I've done as Trump. And I just hope lots of people see it.
I'm really excited to see it. I literally am setting a timer to remind me to watch it when it comes out. That's how I'm very much looking forward to it. I love your Trump impression, as I'm saying, and I'm really looking forward to this high-quality production that the JL Jinx that you believe is about you was not in effect.
May I?
No.
He needed the director needed 3 or 4 eye surgeries following the special. I'm not kidding. It's almost like he saw it through. And the Jinx was like, no. And it, like when the priest in The Exorcist takes the exorcist, like the demon, out of Reagan and like it goes into him, that's almost what happened. He had eye surgery 3 days after or 4 days after filming this.
Therefore, he couldn't work on it, edit it, and get it out sooner. But
No, he
it's
did.
there.
He did. It took a little longer, but it's a really, and he said it's his first special. Like, he's done a lot of obviously video work and things, but it's awesome. I'm so happy with it.
Very, very exciting. And I'm very excited that you are feeling so good about it. So tonight at 9 p.m., you can watch it and share it with your friends. And I'm very much looking forward to it. Well, now, I didn't see the news.
And Canadians especially. I mean, even if it doesn't go viral here, I would love for it to become, a national treasure in Canada.
You know what you should do is my friend Dean Blundell's show to promote it. Do you know Dean?
Did you try to put us in contact no?
I may have already, yeah.
I never got in contact, but if you could,
I'll remind him
obviously,
and all the Canadian people I know.
Or share the link with him. Maybe that'll entice him if he sees it tonight or tomorrow. Maybe he'll want to let him see the product first. I'm that confident in it.
Okay, well, let's get to the news. I want to get your take on, of course, today the President of the United States, named Donald Trump, announced the Kennedy Center honorees. And a couple days ago, he joked about renaming the Kennedy Center after himself. And he also joked kind of in a post today that he'll be himself one of the honorees. Do I have that right?
No, he's hosting, I think.
Oh, well, that'll be great.
Yeah, I mean, Gutfeld running the writer's room, I assume.
He announced that the awards would be given to singer and songwriter George Strait, actors Michael Crawford.
Take that, George Gay.
Actors Michael Crawford and Sylvester Stallone. Singer Gloria Gaynor and the rock band Kiss.
It's okay to wear makeup and have plastic surgery if you also have sex with women. That's what the theme I'm getting from the George Strait. He was probably like, don't listen to his music, hate country music, but he's straight. We like that. Too many gays in arts. And then Kiss, they made the makeup. They were sort of trans, but they did a lot of sex, probably with some underage women as well. We say that with respect. Gloria Gaynor, don't like her for many reasons, but she said, I will survive. And I survived because I got shot. I got shot and I survived. So, yeah, but those are, to be fair, those are legitimate people. Those are people with real credentials and careers in art and entertainment.
I'm not familiar with Michael Crawford. He was in a lot of musicals, apparently.
Yeah, I think he's the Power of the Music of the Night, the Phantom of the Opera. I think he was the original for that.
Why are we honoring a foreigner? Do we usually honor? He's an Englishman. Is he an American too? I don't know.
Maybe he was friends with Roman Polanski or something. Maybe that was enough to get him the street cred that Trump wants.
We definitely do live in an upside down world. The other thing I wanted to, do you have any other thoughts on him taking over the Kennedy Center or, the types of honorees that he's chosen here? It would seem that the prediction would be that he's certainly not going to honor anybody who is in any way political and leans towards reality.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I feel like Jon Voight may have been honored at some point, but if he hasn't been honored, once again, that's an actor with a strong resume to the likes of Kevin Sorbo and Scott Baio. It does say something that for all the cancel culture bitching, Jon Voight is as loony and as Trump loving as they get, but he's a good actor. So he still works with people and gets on major projects. Like, he's a kook. In terms of he'll be doing these weird videos where he's like, God told us he sent down a savior for our country, a man, more than a man, maybe the second coming of Christ, and only Donald J. Trump can save us. And He still gets work. He still works in big projects with lots of A-listers. So it's clearly Scott Baio, Kevin Sorbo, you just suck. It's not your politics that are ruining your career. But there's still guys who are, Vince Vaughn, Jon Voight, you'll start to get thin, but there are people with talent and careers that are Trump people. But by the third year of Trump running this, it's going to be pretty bad. Savannah Chrisley of, a bad reality show. Yes, she's one of our great artists.
In the chat, it says, Benny Alexander says, Trump is going to see Gene and Paul from Kiss without the makeup and freak out when he realizes they're honoring two Jews.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were Jewish.
They're very Jewish. You know, Gene Simmons, he's got that very Jewish. He's got like Jew-fro, but it's been straightened. Interesting. But he had a lot of sex with a lot of women, so we respect that. He was dipping his menorah candle in a lot of wax.
By the way, well, at least, I don't know why you would say that, Benny, or anybody else, because Trump is fighting anti-Semitism as well as any president we've ever seen. Look what he's doing.
By using Jewish people as a battering ram against anti-Semitism. What a fighter.
How is he using Jewish people as a battering ram against anti-Semitism?
Oh, because he's eventually, the blowback is not going to come on Trump. It's going to be on people, I mean, I don't mean this to demean, obviously, the problem of anti-Semitism, but in terms of going after college campuses, this is in that, if you read about Project Esther, the Times covered this a few weeks ago, which was basically, the Heritage Foundation was like, interesting. What if we use the campus protests to our advantage as a way to undermine and undo liberal education in our elite universities? That alone is enough for people to start, eventually there will be blowback, and it will be on the cause of fighting anti-Semitism. It will be on some Jewish people, because he is using a real thing to wage a much broader war that has nothing to do with anti-Semitism and all to do with dislike of liberal values and higher education. But he's covering it under the overly broad umbrella of anti-Semitism, and eventually people will just start going, stop with that anti-Semitism bullshit. You know what Trump did with it. Yeah, and it will. And my dentist, who is Jewish, I went outside the box and found a Jewish dentist in New York.
Exactly outside the box.
He said it to me. He said, I'm of course against anti-Semitism, but what this is going to do is going to be 10 times worse for Jewish people in the long run. He was like, he's using it to go after the Ivy League. He's not using it to go after anti-Semites.
Well, specifically,
he's using it to go after powerful institutions that are aligned against him generally.
Specifically, there are plenty of people who align with a lot of progressive ideas, values, liberal ideas. They're registered Democrats that are also anti-Semitic in their words or actions. And so there's nothing wrong with trying to combat that. But this effort does not try to combat right-wing anti-Semitism, which is a far greater threat, in my opinion. And if folks aren't familiar with Project Esther, they should go listen to that. New York Times did a great job covering that, or read about it. But just to be clear, in that, this is the Heritage Foundation's idea, and it's run by Christians, and it's basically a right-wing Christian effort, they say, to fight anti-Semitism. But there's this one quote in that New York Times podcast that I'll never forget, which is the woman from Project Esther saying that Jewish people didn't do a good enough job. And organizations like the ADL and other organizations that fight anti-Semitism weren't doing a good enough job. Jewish-run organizations were not doing a good enough job fighting anti-Semitism. So we, a Christian organization, have to create this movement and organization. But it's all part of a plan, which I think a lot of people didn't realize. I didn't, for sure, before that New York Times expose.
And if you're going with just the highlights, the anti-Semitism highlights of each side, and not, I know people can always take the higher ground and go, oh, it's bad wherever it happens. You shouldn't be doing this. I'm like, the anti-Semitism I think of when I think of the Trump movement is Jews will not replace us in Charlottesville, and the guy murdering 10 people in a synagogue because they might have been harboring, immigrant like adoptees or something. Now, that doesn't mean making campuses unfriendly and uncomfortable and unsafe for other students with your language or aggressive physical contact is good. Of course it's not. But like campus protests versus hate marches and murder, somehow we don't even talk about that anymore, let alone bring it up as like your side is by no means clean on the issue. In fact, you spent your first term whitewashing and sort of covering up for those kind of things as not, no, it's not what you think it is, and it's going to find people on both sides. But once some unruly college students get out of line, it becomes time to extort billions from universities.
It's also easier to say and shorter to say that conservative-minded Americans have always been the anti-Semites in America. And Jewish Americans have overwhelmingly been registered Democrats and been part of all of the important civil rights and human rights movements in our country. So let's just be clear here.
Yeah, it's we're not a smart country. We're not a focused country. We have no long-term thinking. We're not very good people anymore. So it's a sinking ship, and just enjoy your content while you sink.
Welcome to everybody who is watching live, by the way. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And hello to Annie from New Brunswick, Canada. You've got to promote JL's.
Oh, for a second, I think you're going to say New Brunswick, New Jersey. Isn't that where Rutgers is? But New Brunswick, Canada. Let's go.
And
Trump versus Canada, 9 p.m. tonight.
Trump versus Canada, 9 p.m. tonight on JL's YouTube channel, where you can also now, he's publishing and posting some of his content that is some of his opinions and some of his political analysis, which we always love him for here, and everybody should be loving him for. And you've got a great new video up about why you think we need a new Constitution, specifically a new constitutional convention. And I learned a little bit there because I guess some of the framers, including Jefferson, had talked about the need to update the Constitution every 30 years or something, or maybe you could say generationally, it seems commonsensical given the advancements in technology and multiculturalism and so many other things that you would think that you would want to take a look at our Constitution, and any country would want. Say a little bit more about that video, and everybody should go watch that because I thought it was very interesting. It's not going to happen, obviously, as you said over and over, but it was an interesting thought experiment from a real thought leader, J.L. Cauvin.
Thank you. And as I like to always say during these times, just sort of my framing principles are justice matters, the court is not a court, and originalism is faith. Those are just sort of like my guiding principles. What I think, and it was a lot of people took me literally. I was kind of conceding the fact that this will never happen. We won't have a constitutional convention. I think in that it shows that we are broken. And I make the point of both capitalism and democracy, that we now are facing an illiberal democracy and a capitalism that is no longer maybe full of opportunity. Like they both, you know what I mean? They both work in theory, all jokes aside, they both work in theory, but we have now manipulated them and concentrated power in those two things that they are now working against what they're supposed to be doing. And I mean that on both things. And then somebody was like, oh, you're radical socialist rhetoric. I'm like, radical. So I'm just facing facts that wealth is too concentrated and it's allowing for a concentration of political power. And our democratic system is now being cultivated to be an illiberal democracy where you can say we had elections, but now they are not as democratic as they should be. And the idea that we survived a civil war and put in 3 new amendments, we can't pass an amendment for shit. I don't care what the amendment is for. That tells you that we're sort of broken, that the system we were given that lasted through thick and thin, war, racism, violence, all sorts of things, worked for the most part until the smartphone and Donald Trump. And I think that to me, that says something very profound about who we are as people and Americans now, that this thing that survived. Somebody said, oh, well, they failed before. We had a civil war. I go, no, it didn't fail. We had a war, but after that war, the document became strengthened in ways that we can't even strengthen it anymore. Like, what could we even agree today that should be in the Constitution? I would say nonpartisan gerrymandering seems like a common sense thing. No. Self-interested Republicans would say absolutely not. Well, no assault weapons. Let's just get the ambiguity out. You are entitled to personal weapons, but we have constitutional bans on what kind of weapons you can personally own. Wouldn't happen. Like, we could not agree on anything, let alone go through the process and find something that we could amend. So it's broken in a way that it's never going to be repaired. And we're never going to get a new one. So I was using it as a kind of thought experiment, saying what we need, we're not going to be better people. So we need a constitution that reflects who we are, because we are so outside what the framers conceived that we are failing at the Constitution in ways that even Reconstruction, post-Civil War people didn't fail.
Yeah, you make a lot of great points about what if we were to write a new Constitution today, what currently in it would make the new Constitution. And I guess it's an important point simply to understand what the right in America believes. And I think you have to start with what your goals are, with what you want. And we don't agree on what the goal should be. It would seem, in my opinion, that the MAGA movement, Trump, conservative right, only wants one thing, power for themselves.
Right. I think I said that in the video, but that is the problem. Somebody said to me, there's no middle. Compromise is usually where things get done. And I said, the Democrats are like South Korea and the Republicans are like North Korea. The middle of those two things is not a good solution. Do you know what I mean? Like within the Democratic Party, there's such a range of ideas and opinions on how America should be governed, how progressive, how conservative, how centrist. There is a wide range where a consensus building process within the Democratic Party would lead to a sensible, progressive, but not radical, but not radical path forward. The problem is that's 50% of the country. The other 50% are about, like you said, power. It's not about an agenda. It's not about progress or bringing things back. It's about wielding, abusing, and sustaining power. Yeah. And when that's the goal and the agenda of one half of the political process, the middle point of getting things done and helping people in some way, whether it's Bernie Sanders or Joe Manchin, the compromise that group must come up with, and then to formulate a compromise with we don't care, we're about power, and right now we're about power and cult of personality. You cannot, it's the analogy I always say, and then I'll stop blathering. 2 + 2 is 4. The other side says 2 + 2 is 10. You want me to have a solution that says 2 + 2 is 7. Because that's in the middle of right and crazy.
The DMZ.
Correct. I should say correct and crazy.
Sometimes I often wish I could have conversations with people who disagree with me on everything when it comes to politics or anything else, morality even. But these conversations, whether they be on social media with strangers or in person, overwhelmingly now, even with people that you think are otherwise smart or principled, devolve into generalizations and labels, including liberal progressives. And what I liked, and when I created my old show, the first iteration of my talk show was no labels allowed. So you couldn't use liberal or conservative, Democrat or Republican. You would call into the show, or we would talk about an issue, a problem, a policy. And when you take away people's argument or knee-jerk reaction to generalize or to use those labels, it's a really interesting and I think informative discussion, because you get to talk about kind of values, and it's not liberals believe, conservatives believe. No, let's talk about consumer protections. What kind of protections do you think we should have, or regulations should we have for the environment, or to keep our water and air clean, or around banking, around scams? There's billion-dollar scams now. People are getting their entire life savings taken away from them. Could we agree on a law or an entity that would protect all of us, or try to keep up with these scams? But we don't really often get to have that discussion, because it's devolved so much into, and on all sides, into hatred, disdain, and disrespect. So I don't really have a question or anything. Yeah, I just feel like
I do think I said this in the video also, if people check it out, but I did say I feel like we have a lot of citizen malpractice also, because I am not somebody who believes in necessarily just always blaming the media or the Democrats. In fact, I'm very tired of that people in this late hour of American democracy still blame Democrats for not escorting them through their own citizenship. But I think people aren't as informed as they need to be. When the CFPB basically has been gutted, and there was a rule put in by Biden where it was was it a cap on overdraft fees or something?
Yep.
And that is, talk about a populist, for the people, kind of applies to everybody. And the Republicans actually passed a law to snuff that out. They actually got together and were like, no, that's something we definitely, one of our 5 laws that we managed to pass in our term has to be this. And if you're not aware, like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is a real populist for the people, protecting people, getting people money back from bigger entities that have taken money from them. If you can't bother to know what that is and pay attention and know that, hey, that's something the Democrats did, that's a good thing. Why are the Republicans? At some point, being the educator, the nanny, the lawmaker, and the hero is too much of a burden on one party when the other party is actively just trying to suicide bomb politics. It's the same thing I said about Fox News a couple of weeks ago on social media. I said, their job is not to deliver news, it's to discredit news. Yeah. They sit there so that you don't trust anybody. Their job is done when you just go, well, all media. Really, you think the New York Times, in all seriousness, you can have problems with their editorial board or their headlines sometimes. Do you think the giant amount of work the New York Times is all discredited because like 4 times a year you hate their fucking headlines? A lot of people now have adopted this kind of like, oh, you read the New York Times, whatever. Yeah, I do. There's a reason why it was the paper of record and still is. Not because you found 5 headlines that you thought showed they were doing too much both sidesism or that they don't like Trump just because he's a racist, raping traitor. They deliver the fucking news like, still. Like you still get really valuable information, insights, and reporting from this massive entity that has dedicated its existence to doing that. But now it's easier for people to just go, both sides, and then you don't have to be an active participant because you can take the shortcut of saying, well, it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
Then we end up with worse bullshit.
It's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was created as a result of the global financial crisis of 2008, where the housing market bubble exploded, including on me and my ex-wife, who bought a home in 2007. Real smart. We didn't know what was coming.
Classic Dominic.
Nor did anybody. Almost anybody knew what was coming. But
Christian Bale and Steve Carell did in that movie.
Well, maybe the people they played, I don't know that they themselves knew. They're actors. I'm pretty sure they didn't see it coming. But certainly The Big Short, depicts it really well. But, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau should have been something that the vast majority of Americans supported unless they had interests in the entities that were being regulated, including, the big banks who destroyed our economy. Because when you get rid of financial regulations, guess what? When you lose the referee, guess what? Players tend to cheat. So it's a really good example, and I'm glad that you picked up on it because I did mention financial regulations and set you up for that. And you took the ball and you ran like a goddamn anti-bank hero. And
in 5 years, we're going to have, Wells Fargo crypto lottery as our banking system.
In the live chat, Rachel says CFPB is woke policy by commie Elizabeth Warren. Of course, Elizabeth Warren was, I think, the first agency leader before she got elected to the U.S. Senate. But it makes me think.
No, they wouldn't. She created it. They wouldn't, out of spite, they wouldn't let her run the agency. They wouldn't confirm her under Obama.
That's right.
Because
that's right. Well
they
done.
wanted to be spiteful. I forget. It was the guy who ran for governor in Ohio who ran it.
Sherrod Brown. Oh, who ran for governor? I know who you're talking about. I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, But yeah, it's woke commie. Was that sarcasm or is that a real human being?
No, that was sarcasm. That was sarcasm.
Okay,
but it brings up another point, another news item I wanted to ask you about, because this week we found out that the federal government is telling a company, I think it's publicly traded, NVIDIA, they make chips, computer chips.
As I said in the video, they went from lotions and aftershave to AI, but that's
I think
Nivea.
it's a different. I'm pretty sure.
It's Nivea, but that was Anyway, continue. Sorry.
And so the federal government is telling a private or even publicly traded company that they have to give 15% of their profits to the government. Now we don't know where that money's going.
Pete, I believe that's called "wet my beak."
It is a kind of mafia extortion type of thing. But the point I'm making, jumping out of Rachel's, Liz Warren's a commie. They're constantly calling Democrats communists and socialists. They don't really know what that means. But if they knew just the very beginning of it, they would talk about government having ownership over private enterprise and ordering it around and making them, in this case, pay part of the profits. This is a communist thing to do for the federal government to tell NVIDIA they have to give the government money more than just the taxes and regulations that they have to be a part of. It is, I don't know what else you would call it other than communist or mafia tactics, obviously.
Yeah, and I assume the libertarians will be marching on the Capitol any day now to protest this. Right. They never get tired of shouting, the control the means of production or whatever the fuck the old terms are. But no, it's another example. This is not to do a Hitler comparison, but I'm doing it in a shallow way. It's the Aryan race is blonde, blue, tall, blonde hair, blue-eyed, tall, good features. And who's the leader of this doctrine? A short, angry guy with a weird mustache and dark hair. Like that, Trump is literally like it's so oddly similar in terms of just on a superficial way. Forget the real similarities. But the idea of like, yes, this man with tits and makeup and who wears lifts and has a gunt, that's who's telling me what masculinity is and what a man is.
Yeah.
This low T, like saggy, large Marge character is telling men what men are, who men are. And he's kicking trans service people who are doing real stereotypical men's work, kicking them out of the military with no benefits. Once again, not to jump around the topics, but that's what I'm saying. Every day under Trump, sort of satisfying the Steve Bannon theory of, throw a lot of shit at everybody and like they can't keep up. It really is like, I've never been alive, I don't think, to see a day where page 19 of the main section of the New York Times has a big story that would be front page news if there wasn't internationally and nationally 13 daily shakeups and tragedies and fuck ups that are pushing serious news to a later page because he just doesn't stop doing catastrophic things or things that will be catastrophes in the future.
By the way, the name you and I were both looking for, the first agency head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Richard Cordray. If you had that at home, you're the big winner. Also love the word gunt in reference to a man. Marcia in the live chat says, don't forget his lady hips.
That's how you know it's a cult. And these things are no longer, you're like a cult. It's a cult. When the history books are written 80 years from now, this will be sort of some weird moment in international and national politics of like Jim Jones meets Hitler. Like it's very bizarre, or Idi Amin or whoever. What do you
mean when you say cult? It's cult thinking, or it's a cult. MAGA's a cult. Just give one specific example of what you mean in terms of the thinking that suggests it's cult-like thinking.
There is a collective worship and a collective cognitive dissonance from what is in front of us and what he's doing and who he is. That it is like they are seeing him through a very bizarre, somewhat. In the first term, I was calling it faith-based, like politics. I was calling that in his first term because it was like so out of step with the data, the information, and what was in front of us. From their description of him to his policies, there is such a bizarre separation that it's like a brain. It almost feels like people who are willingly brainwashed, like they say hypnosis can only really happen to people who are susceptible to it. Well, the bigotry, the combo of bigotry and fear and hostility created a fertile ground for somebody like Trump, who projected cartoonish strength while possessing none of the traits that he said were strength. And they just kept following him along this path of like, he's the greatest president ever. That's right. Every historian thinks otherwise. Every country fucking hates him. No, you can't point to any data, but your vibes feel validated, and that's it.
Speaking of validating vibes, what is a more validating vibe than we have a lot of crime in our town? It's a really interesting thing. I mean, seriously, I do have some sympathy for this. I know that I'm kind of more on an extreme, and I'm a bit more brainwashed into thinking more analytically about the threats that my family should be concerned about. For example, having kids, raising kids, and worrying about. I never worried about crime. And the reason I didn't is because I knew that I lived, and it's the reason we bought a house, in one of the safest communities in New York State and America. But my neighbors think crime is rampant here. They think crime is bad. And the reason people think crime is bad is because crimes occur. And sometimes they're terrible, ugly, grisly crimes. And if you hear about them, which you will, because obviously news and media disproportionately has always paid attention to them because it gets your eyeballs and attention and affects you emotionally a great deal, then you would think that there's a lot of crime. When in fact, however, crime is tracked and classified and charted and combated, because crime is a very hard thing to combat. Sociologically, it's always been a hard thing. It's not easy to diagnose and decide what will prevent it, but crime's way down, or crime is almost non-existent, and yet people believe things are terrible because somebody got pushed on the subway last month. One person who it was probably their fault.
Yeah, and I would do it again if confronted with that person. But I think, a perfect example, because Trump, somebody called him, and I forget if it was Ezra Klein or somebody he was speaking to, kind of referred to him as basically he's a social media algorithm as president. He operates like that. And I would call him, because of his New York City roots, he's a tabloid president. He seizes headlines and he runs with headlines. He governs by what would make a good New York Post headline, like Laken Riley, the woman who was killed by an illegal immigrant that became a campaign.
It's a perfect example. It's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Yeah.
It's like, yes, she died. And government can't be run by the tabloid. It's run by data. It's run by big, massive resources. But Trump campaigns and governs by tabloid headlines, which will hurt us deeply in the short and especially long term.
And, as bad as sexual abuse and violence is, especially against children, the worst violence against children is gun crime. It's the leading cause of death. And a couple days ago, this went fairly undercovered. It was covered and then it went away. In Austin, Texas, a white man shot 3 people, I think dead, in a Target, including a child. Guess what? Big right-winger, big Trumper. And the point of what I'm trying to say is that if you actually cared about crime, you would care about gun violence, you'd do something about guns, and certainly you would do something about the ideology that radicalizes people into committing, because it's always, they were unwell or they were lonely or they were a lone wolf or that. No, they were radicalized just the way Al-Qaeda and any other extremists get radicalized. And in this case, this kid was a right-wing Trump-supporting guy, and he got a gun and he shot and killed people. So if you really wanted to be concerned about crime, you talk about guns, but we're not allowed to talk about guns. So forget it.
Yeah. And I do have to go now.
Bullshit.
Yeah. I got to go back to work.
It's weird that I went on my rant.
That's fine.
It's awkward that I went on my rant and then you just clearly weren't engaged, much less listening. And then
I was engaged.
And when I got done, you're like, I got to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, murdering kids by gun is a real buzzkill for me. Sorry if that makes me weird.
He's got to go back to his day job, where he is working at an amazing nonprofit in New York, and people should check it out. Neighborhood Association for Intercultural Affairs. And
doesn't that sound like a place that Trump's going to shut down any day now?
You're doing your best to keep people in their homes and apartments, and you've just started there, and I'm very excited to see what you do there. And I'm most excited to see at 9 p.m. your new special. Thank you for joining me, and you can go now. Yeah, there he goes, everybody. JL Cauvin. Go watch the special, please. Please go support JL. He's such a good guy and such a funny and talented, smart guy. And if you don't think so, well, I don't know what to tell you. I appreciate you listening to today's show and the week's show. I also caught up with Jason Johnson. You can go watch that on YouTube, but I'll post the audio of that ASAP maybe later today, if not tomorrow morning. And I can't do any of it without you. So please sign up or pay more if you can afford to pay more. If you're getting a lot out of it, you can always edit your pledge up. A couple of you did that this week, and it's super, super appreciated. Very, very grateful. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Go buy Jon Carroll's new album at JonCarroll.org. He writes and performs all the music here. We love him. We appreciate him. And that is it. Go buy Kevin's honey, too. Yeah, go to Slate Hill Edible Forest and buy his honey, and hope to see you at Farm Jam. Have a great weekend. Take good care of yourself. Be healthy in mind and body. Meditate, journal, go for a walk, do whatever you need to do, and take care of yourself. And I'll see you on the Discord platform anytime, all time. Bye-bye.
You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. You got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be told to suck, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand